Hello everyone, and hopefully my microphone's working this time. There are a lot of campaigns in Total War Warhammer, with each DLC adding more and more. Loads of different style legendary lords for any flavor of playstyle that you're looking for. Now, I've got 4,000 hours in the game, and I've played pretty much everyone a number of times. So in this video, we're going to talk about my personal top 5 campaigns in Total War Warhammer 3. Now, this isn't with like most overpowered, but mostly just the most fun campaigns that I've had through either theming or just general play. So without further ado, let's begin. But before that, a big thank you to our sponsor, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a platform where you'll be able to buy games at a discounted rate. There are a lot of games releasing lately, and I'm assuming that's because nobody wants to release their title around the same time as GTA 6. If you're like me and you've got varied tastes, you're going to want to pick them up at a good discount, where Instant Gaming has massive discounts on titles that have released and those that haven't just yet. The great thing is you can wishlist Total War 40k and get yourself a discount when it goes up for sale, because Lord knows Creative Assembly are probably going to make it a bit more expensive. But not only that, we've got our monthly giveaway going on. Win the game of your choice. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below and sign up. You don't even have to make a purchase. I've been working with this company now for what, like 2 years? I really enjoy working with them, and I use their services too, because my addiction to tabletop means that money can be a little tight sometimes. So I want to pick up a game at a good discount. With the new Resident Evil game coming out, this is one that I'm really keen on, and I'm more than happy to promote a service that I myself use. So once again, thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Let's return to our regularly scheduled programming. Now, I just want to make one thing clear. I want to go a little bit against the norm. Like, I'm not going to talk about Karl Franz in this video. I love Karl, I love Balthazar. They're very, very fun characters to play around with, but a lot of people go to the Empire. A lot of people just gravitate towards that. There's so much different stuff at the moment, and the game is going to keep expanding, that it's important to try the other factions. This is one of the best things about Warhammer Fantasy. We've got so much, and there's going to be a lot more, hopefully, you know, knock on wood, that we're going to be spoiled for choice. I've got 4,000 hours into the game. I'd love to see if I could get up to 8,000, 9,000, 12,000 before I get bored. Alright, this one's going to start off controversial, but our 5th spot here is Greasus Goldtooth. I know it's going to be one of those weird ones because a lot of people don't like the Ogres, but since the Ogres did get their rework during Omens of Destruction, and also Greasus got some mechanic which technically isn't really unique, it's the Karl Franz one just kind of retooled a little bit, Greasus has become one of those factions I really enjoy playing. Now let me make it clear, I have a soft spot for the Ogres. It's one of those factions which I was really happy got introduced quite early. Disappointed that they really didn't play too well, but it didn't take too long for them to get a full-on rework to bring them in line to what their expectations were. The Ogres are one of those meme factions. A lot of people liked them in the tabletop, and for good reason. They're very imposing, it's a low unit count army, and they've got a lot of really fun stuff to play around with. With the Tyrant's Demands, Greasus now feels like the over-tyrant he's supposed to be in lore, and I think that really does elevate him. Sure, a lot of people will actively avoid the Ogres, but I think that you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you ended up pre-ordering Warhammer 3 like a lot of people did, because you've got access to them. You are building up a small empire, but the main thing is just kind of building up from the Mountains of Morn and then just placing camps in different locations. The Ogres will likely never receive any new content. They have had a few DLC stuff and obviously an FLC. Really, the only thing I would love to see is having mount options for like lords and heroes that don't have anything. You know, we got Mournfangs, we got Rhinoxes, and we got like the 2 big beasties. It wasn't a thing in the tabletop, funny enough it is now, but I feel like that would just be cool for the Ogres. Barring that, like, I can have a full Greasus campaign and be very happy about it. I don't feel like I need mods to improve Greasus or any of the other Ogres by any means, where I feel that any extra mods added to Greasus are supplementary and just kind of like additions, rather than I need these to play the Ogres. For our 4th spot, we've got Oxyodal. Yeah, the Lizardmen have had a small update recently, and they play quite well, but I don't think any of them can top Oxyodal. Oxyodal is so different from the other lords because he is not only building up in the Southern Chaos Waste and then expanding from there, but he's hunting down other Chaos factions. This is something so tied up to his lore, which feels really good. You know, there's a Chaos threat popping up in the north, you gotta go hunt it down. Some warriors, some beastmen, that stuff is great. building up your sanctums and actively supporting the other Lizardmen factions also feels awesome. This little chameleon skink still stands as the best Lizardmen experience in my opinion. It's very different to the others, but it gives you that feeling of the devs read through his lore and decided, okay, we're going to do that. The only downside is there's no chameleon skink lord or hero, which kind of feels odd, but that was never a thing in the tabletop. It would have just been really good for theming. Now, in the future, if we do get the Realms of Chaos added to the Immortal Empires map, I'd love to see some missions focused around that, just to kind of incentivize you, because lore-wise, he gets trapped there for a while. Like, he despises demons because of it, right? And more so than pretty much any other Lizardmen, where they all really hate demons and chaos. But being trapped in the Realms of Chaos must have been incredibly traumatic. But having essentially what is a full army of hunters, you can add in some monsters in there if you need to, feels great. You feel like, well, kind of like the Predator, you know, you're going around and becoming an absolute terror to all the threats of Lustria and the Warhammer fantasy world. It is, of course, a difficult start in the beginning because you're facing against Kairos, who is very, very strong post-rework. But after that, it's smooth sailing depending on where you want to go. And the great thing about his teleport is you can pretty much end up anywhere. If you want to move around, if you want to have a different start, go somewhere else, set up shop, kind of build up over there and see what you can do. I will always go back to Oxyotl when I want to play a Lizardman campaign. Maybe in the future we'll see some like full-on fixes for Lizardmen and just like bring them up to full standard to Warhammer 3, because they're almost there thanks to the most recent update. But Oxyotl, before the update, was still able to stand out by himself. Okay, our third spot is actually my favorite campaign so far, Dakala the Denied One, a character that I have been waiting years and years for to see introduced into Total War Warhammer, and finally was introduced via the Tides of Torment DLC. Her campaign is so drastically different to all the other Slaanesh lords, and so very structured that it did actually take me by surprise when I got to play it in an early access period. Honestly, I couldn't have envisioned this. I kind of thought, you know, obviously a focus on mortal lords and units and stuff, and we've got that mostly focusing around marauders, which can be buffed up quite dramatically so. But you've got the Pleasure Palace system, you've got a bunch of new mechanics too, just everything focuses in a very Chaos Dwarf style, which I really like. The Chaos Dwarfs are still standing as one of the best races, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, but there's just so much going on. There are a few flaws with the campaign, and yes, one of it is the fact that it's kind of overpowered, so it does need a little bit of nerfing here and there, which I do feel Creative Assembly are going to start looking at. Hell, they started nerfing the Slang Wars recently, which, yeah, it's perfectly fine. The biggest problem is for newer players who aren't really too used to it, losing your first palace, or losing a palace in general, can actually end up causing you to have a soft lock. Hopefully that gets fixed. It has been reported to Creative Assembly, but barring the bugs, Dakala's campaign is everything I wanted from a Warriors of Chaos themed mono-god faction. I'm really, really happy, and before that, my favorite campaign was Azazel. This has just proven that, yeah, Creative Assembly are constantly looking at evolving certain aspects of the game, and with introductions of new characters, they can do that. It gives me great hope for like a potential Egrim Van Horseman too. There's some holes like missing out on the Mortal Pleasure Knights, but hopefully that happens at some point too. But so far I've played a number of Dakala campaigns, and when a campaign makes me sit down and go, I need to paint up an army themed around this, that means that to me at least, it's very, very good. And I am working on a Dakala themed army for the Old World for a tournament that I'm going to be playing at Warhammer World later this year. I love everything about this campaign, the whole free settlement system, again, very, very cool. Being able to have so much to do. I know a lot of people did kind of push back on that, but keep in mind that Total War is ever evolving, and if characters are going to be more structured and more stylized in different styles, that will give you reason to play all the different Slaanesh lords, all the different Empire lords. The more diversification in terms of mechanics and playstyle throughout different races, the better overall. You're going to get your money's worth. Surprise, surprise, the Skaven are going to feature here. Number 2, we've got Ikit Claw. I mean, do we have to say anything? The Skaven are widely popular. It's why they've gotten so much content over the years, and we know that like there's more stuff to come eventually. But Ikit is the pinnacle for the Skaven experience. You get all the guns from Clan Scryer, you get nuclear warfare. They just are so incredibly fun, and this was kind of one of the turning points for Warhammer 2, showcasing extremely structured style DLCs. while it doesn't look like it's that much, it actually does have a lot going on in the background. The Skaven, they are so different, and really, you should be playing a Skaven campaign at some point throughout your time in Warhammer 3, but Ikit is the main one to go for, I think. It's a massive shame because he's not my favorite character. Like, I like Skrolk. Plagues for Skrolk at some point. Yes, I am looking for any excuse to say that in a video. But going back to Ikit, there's nothing more satisfying than having one of the most terrifying gun lines in Warhammer 3. Like, seriously. You can make the Empire blush with all the guns that you have access to. Rattling guns are extremely devastating. You've got just Warplock Jezzails firing from basically the other side of the map. Warp lightning cannons. Add that in with some Plague Claw catapults and just watch the enemy melt before they get to you. And if all else fails, get yourself a nuke. The fact that you've got the workshop too, so you can buff up some stuff, it works really, really well. Ikit is one of those cool characters. He's got Lord options that never really existed on the tabletop back in the day, just to kind of keep that theme rolling. It pains me to say that Ikit is the most fun Skaven Lord, but I mean, come on, right? He is one of the best, and hopefully, in the future, when we get Thankwall, it'll be a very similar experience. Obviously focusing around other stuff, like we've seen with all the other DLC Lords, for the Skaven specifically, where they're very stylized. But yeah, Skaven, one of those factions that if you haven't played them yet, you really need to. Now, before we jump onto the final spot, we are going to talk about a honorable mention, because it's not really a character, it's a race as a whole. The Chaos Dwarfs are by far one of the most structured DLCs we've ever had for Total War Warhammer 3, and dare I say, just Total War in general. The fact is, you've got, 3 different types of settlements, all of them kind of interlocking, because like you need to use all 3 of them. And all of it is tied to your normal campaign too, so you're like getting to battles, you're getting some labor, the labor's then making some materials, the materials that's making some armaments, and that all goes into your big stuff to get new units, to get access to more stuff, to get some buffs. There is so much going there. A lot of people did complain about some parts of the Chaos Dwarfs regarding the fact that, yeah, none of the lords have something unique tailored towards them, barring Zatan, who does get access to an extra caravan, but all 3 of those lords are iconic. The legendary hero isn't too bad. Sure, it's a very slow campaign at the beginning because you're mostly focusing around using hobgoblins and laborers, but as you get the ball rolling, you start getting some of the best artillery in the game. So this isn't about the guns, this is about the artillery, right? There is just so much going in there. They are honestly amazing. I feel like the Chaos Dwarfs did set up a new standard for DLC, and DLCs that we've seen after haven't really been too bad. Well, barring Shadows of Change, but it's a good thing. We're seeing the evolution of Warhammer 3 from Warhammer 2 and obviously from Warhammer 1. This is a good thing. Innovation is important. We know that Nagash is going to be his own race by classification, so I've got very high expectations for Nagash. Not only because it is Nagash, but because of how the Chaos Dwarfs were handled. If we get any other races in the future, say for example the Dogs of War, or anything else that Creative Assembly might surprise us with, the Chaos Dwarfs is what they need to beat. Now, the LUSC campaign might be surprising for some, but I'm going to be talking about Tamacon. I know, Nurgle isn't the most popular, but there's something about Tamacon that was done very, very well. You see, there was a lot of lack of narrative when it comes to Warhammer 3, right? Creative Assembly took the, issues that were presented from the fan base during the Realm of Chaos, and they decided that it was the narrative that was the problem. It wasn't the narrative, it was just how the narrative was handled. A lot of DLCs nowadays haven't had any narrative. Chaos Dwarfs did, and a lot of the Lord packs have been kind of put into the campaign, right? Where it's done in a very brief sense. Tamacon, you don't really get a lot of context from him, but from someone who knows the lore, who's read the book's right behind me actually. I was going through it because I'm looking at just some stuff. His campaign basically allows you to play through his lore. Sure, there's no final battle, which is pretty disappointing, but overall I'd say that Thrones of Decay had that narrative baked into each of the campaigns. So it wasn't just for Tamacon, but Elspeth and Malachi too. Tamacon's story is essentially gathering up some warlords, getting different armies to join the fray, so this is what happens when you get all those pseudo-legendary heroes, and making your way down to Null to destroy it. Now, he does lose, which is probably why they didn't do a final battle. Now they seem to be hitting it with the, what if we can change history and stuff with the End Times update, which will come at some point this year or in the next 20 years at some point. But I remember firing up Temacon for the first time, playing a full campaign of him and going, God, that felt like I was playing through his story. And that is great. I think that's super important. The same thing goes with Elspeth, for example, which is why I feel so strongly about Thrones of Decay. It was the best of the Lord packs that we've gotten so far in terms of 1v1v1. We have not had a single one to get there just yet. Tides of Torment was kind of close, but Temacon and Elspeth and Malachi are phenomenal campaigns. Honestly, when I was writing out this video idea, I was likely going to go with all three of them, but the problem is that that's no fun. I wanted to hit different aspects from different games and also make sure that it isn't just all based on one DLC. And again, if you haven't played anything for Thrones of Decay just yet, you really should, because if not, you're just missing out. This was a pretty difficult video to write out, I'm not going to lie, because I kept coming back to it and going, okay, which are the campaigns that speak out to me the most? And there's so much there, right? Like this game, despite that I do complain about it, I love this title and there's a lot of fun characters there. Sure, this game has its flaws, but it is my favorite game of all time, and I doubt anything is going to be able to top that. Not even Total War 40k is probably going to have the same impact it has on, like, everything that this has done. This game is amazing. I'm not saying 40k will be worse than Warhammer 3, but there is something about a game that can revive a setting, literally revive a setting, and it constantly is getting better. Sure, there's a lot of problems, and Creative Assembly need to kind of like, pull a finger out, get some things going, fix up sieges, AI and stuff that has been on the bucket list for a while, I imagine, but we're getting loads and loads of really cool characters. We're getting loads of really cool playable races. Let me know what you guys think about this list. Obviously, you guys probably have some other favorites. I know a lot of people are going to be like, where's Carl, but there's no point talking about Carl. Everyone plays Carl. I think it's one of the big things that everyone goes to. So I wanted to talk about some different ones. I feel like the Ogres did deserve a little bit of love. It's important to try out different things, and that's very obvious when you've got so much being released, and, well, it's a bit slower now, but you've got so much, 100 plus lords, and so many races to play around with. But have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. I've got some fun stuff coming. I've been all over the place. Heating is installed, by the way, for those who have been wondering why it's been taking so long. I have no idea. But it's up, and the cats are toasty, and that's the most important thing. Have a great one, guys. Bye.